Hi, I'm Liron Cohen.
And I'm Mimi Torchin.
And you're listening to Lady Parts TV, the podcast.
Whee!
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
We're back after quite a hiatus. And actually, this week was when I needed my hiatus.
Yeah.
After we both got our second shots.
Yay!
Our second vaccines.
Yes.
We're very, very excited. And you know, most of the side effects have dissipated, and the only side effect that lasted is the immense gratitude.
And the armor.
And the armor. The shield. So when your turn is up, please, please, please get your vaccine.
Yes. Be certain to.
And we're going to tell you about our stats now. 3 weeks, so 45 primetime shows we tallied, and out of which written or co-written by a woman, 29, 64%. Directed by a woman, 16, 35%. Mm-hmm. Not too bad. Okay, we have really good stuff to tell you about today, and a lot of it actually is from around the world. And the first is a new movie that has just been nominated for an Oscar.
For a foreign language film.
For an international, international film. And we were very, very fortunate to get a chance to see it. And
it's available on digital and on demand now. The name of the movie, you might have heard about it, is Quo Vadis, Aida. And it was written and directed by Jasmila something or other.
Well, it might be Jasmila Zbanic.
Zbanic.
I'm sorry for mispronouncing.
Yes.
The movie is from Bosnia and Herzegovina, so...
And it's starring Jasna...
Or Jasna. Not sure. Duricic. Or Duricic. I'm very sorry. Yeah. If we have listeners from Bosnia and Herzegovina, please let us know.
Please feel free to let us know. And she, by the way, was magnificent, the actress, and the direction is superb, whether or not we can pronounce their names.
Exactly.
It takes place in Bosnia in July of 1995, and Aida is a translator for the UN, and so she's privy to there's UN peacekeeping forces in this little town of Srebrenica.
Srebrenica is actually...
it's actually not a little town.
If you know the story, the history of Bosnia and Herzegovina and the atrocities and the genocide, you know that Srebrenica was actually the site of one of the worst massacres.
The genocide.
Of that,
yes. And they were supposed to be in a safe zone, and they were supposed to be protected by the UN. And one of the things first of all, I knew very little about the actual facts of this terrible war, and I still don't know too much about it. All I know is that it was horrific, and that between this and the Hotel Rwanda from quite a while back, peacekeeping forces from the UN are totally impotent. I don't know what they do, but they sure don't protect anyone. And in this case, it seemed that the people at their compound were expecting to get help.
Well, it seemed like the people on the ground had wanted to help, yes, but they weren't getting anything from their superiors.
And they aren't really allowed to do anything.
No supplies, no instructions.
No, it was
nothing.
Just... Anyway, when this town was being attacked by the Serbs, they did take as many as they could into the compound, although they had nothing to really give them. And most of the movie is Aida trying to use the little bit of pull of a juice she has to get her son and her husband in a safe place. She was safe because she was part of the UN.
But it's more than that. It's about because she was privy to information that other people were not. We are privy to information and we can see where this is going.
Yes.
The UN was so eager to
yes, they wanted to work with...
Yes, because they weren't getting anything from the UN to actually help these people, so they were trying to make peace with...
They didn't even have food for them. They didn't even have blankets. They had nothing.
So we, especially since we have watched enough Holocaust movies to know where these things go, we could see where this is going. You know, whenever they promise people showers, they end up getting gas chambers.
Right.
So the sense of dread, and Aida was smart enough to know where this was going
knew.
to. So this is the entire, like, we see things through her eyes and trying to negotiate what little possible leverage she had to protect whoever she could.
And she was frantic. And the level of
But
her...
she was so strong.
Oh, she was so strong.
Amazing.
She was so phenomenal.
And I mean, really, when you think about it, she was the woman in the center. The men were either disgusting, despicable, or
they were weak.
or
powerless.
Powerless, exactly.
Right.
And she was a lioness.
Oh, she was amazing. And the level of her anxiety increases as the movie goes on, and you can
as
feel,
well as the audience's anxiety.
Yes, and that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
You feel that it's transferred to you, but not enough reason not to watch the film.
Oh no, this is an exquisite film. It's really, really exquisite. I mean, it's very hard, and it lingered with me for days after, especially because it's a true story, and you think to yourself, this is what people all over the world have gone through,
suffered,
and will probably go through some more,
or have done to each other.
Right.
I'm always amazed at how cruel humanity is.
And for what?
And for what?
For what?
Yeah.
So,
but this is a wonderful, powerful film that is worth suffering through. Believe
and it's an
me.
important story that needs to be told.
Yes, I knew very little about it,
especially because another. You don't see it, but you can sense it under the surface. And one of the things that was the most horrific thing about this specific ethnic cleanse genocide is the mass rape of women.
Yes, that's that's something we probably most of us have heard of, because I think it may have been publicly the first time that we knew that was used as a weapon of war.
Right. And so you don't see any of it, but there is a sense that you feel underneath the surface. These people are every single one of these actors
down
and some
to
of them
the final extra.
And some of the extras are people who have actually been there at the time when this happened. So it was a phenomenal film. Highly recommended. It's worth going through the pain.
It is.
It's called Quo Vadis, Aida. It's available on digital and on demand March 15th, and we highly recommend that you watch it. Now we're following a little bit of a heavy movie with another heavy movie, but another very, very highly recommended movie. This is a new documentary available on VOD March 23rd, so it's already out. It's called Tell My Story, directed by David Fried, and it's a very important movie and a very important subject matter to talk about. And it follows Jason Reed, who is the father to a 14-year-old sweet, sweet son who killed himself. And this is a very brave man who has the courage, even though it's very, very hard.
Very hard for him. His wife couldn't participate in any way.
Right.
But his 2 children did.
His 3 children.
3 children?
His 3 remaining children, yes. 2 boys and a girl. He goes on a journey to try to understand why he did it. And actually, his son
committed suicide.
His son left him a note that said, "Tell my story." And he decided that he needed to understand what made his son kill himself so that he could try to prevent it from happening to more kids.
And his son was not gay. He wasn't particularly picked on or bullied in school.
He was
depressed.
To some
degree, but it wasn't that relentless bullying. But he suffered deeply from depression.
Well, what they're saying is that there has been a huge increase in teen suicides in recent years. And one of the things that the movie really looks into is how social media and the internet have really increased depression and anxiety in kids and teens. And I'm sure that it also does in adults.
Yes.
But when you're a child, we oftentimes talk about it, how we can't even imagine growing up in a world where everything you do, you put online, and you kind of measure your value in how many people follow you and how many people like you.
And everybody is always putting their best face forward.
So you always think everybody's doing well, and only I'm doing badly.
Yeah, I'm the only one suffering here.
Yeah. So when you're an adult and you've had a lifetime of knowing how to have social interactions and things that are not mitigated by a screen, or that, when you understand that people allow themselves to be a lot more cruel online because it's anonymous and it's easy. We grew up with social interactions. There's something about seeing another person and sensing them and seeing the look on their eyes. You don't.
It mitigates to some degree some of the things that might not be pleasant.
Well, I think it's also, it's like road rage when they talk about, you don't see the other person in the car. You can just project to them whatever you want to project on them. When you have a person that you're interacting with in person, it's different to just spewing lines on a screen.
You have a fighting chance to protect yourself.
Well, and it's more of a human interaction. People act, there are things that people would never say to your face that they would say online.
Exactly.
So when you grow up that way, when that's your world, it must be so weird. It must be so
I can't even imagine it.
And of course there are a lot more stressors in kids' lives now. The pressure to be, I can't imagine the things that parents make their kids do at kindergarten so they can get into a good college 18 years later.
The pressure must be unbearable.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead and tell them a little bit more about the film itself.
Well, so the film follows the father and his journey, and on his journey he meets other suicide survivors and families of people who killed themselves and prevention experts. And it's a very, very well-made film. It's very intimate, very moving. I think the information is invaluable, especially for people who have kids that age these days, but for anybody and everybody, because suicide is always something that people oftentimes say, oh, I would never have guessed. I mean, they were always smiling. They were always... So I think watching this film and understanding what it feels like to be inside of the mind of a person who is contemplating suicide or who is depressed, and how to approach them and how to talk about the subject, because a lot of people are afraid to talk about the subject. They're afraid that they'll put ideas in the person's head. You can't do that.
You can't do that.
You can't. All you can do is make somebody who's already thinking about it feel less alone and feel that they can talk about it some more.
Yes, I think that it's only a positive.
Absolutely.
Talking about it. It's not. I mean, I don't. I don't understand this triggers. But I don't think talking about it is a trigger as much as it is a comfort.
I think not talking about it is more of a trigger than talking about it. Because if somebody is very much alone with those thoughts...
Exactly.
First of all, because the feeling of loneliness is probably one of the most painful feelings that usually causes people to want to commit suicide. So by having somebody talk to them about it, they feel less alone already. So that's already a good thing. But also because, again,
we do see sessions. We do see
support groups, both for survivors and their families, and families of people who didn't survive, and which is another important aspect of this. The trauma, the trauma of the people who have to live with that, and the guilt and the. So, one of the best films that I saw on the subject. I really recommend it.
Yes, it's brilliantly done. Tell
My Story is available already on VOD. Check it out. Okay, something a little more upbeat. We have 2 Acorn shows. Acorn TV, our favorite streaming service. We have 2 Acorn TV shows to recommend. The first one comes to you all the way from Israel, a place I know a little bit. And it's called The Attache. It debuted actually, so I think they released all of them at the same time, March 22nd, so it's already there. Created by and stars Eli Ben David, who also it has based the show on his personal experience, and his counterpart, his wife on the show, is Eloise Godet. It's both in Hebrew and in French. And Eli Ben David plays a man who follows his wife.
An
Israeli man of Moroccan descent, but Jewish, who follows his wife to Paris. She's originally from Paris, and she gets an opportunity. She moved to Israel and married him.
He had a music career.
Right. And she gets the opportunity to be the attaché at the Israeli consulate in Paris, and jumps at the opportunity because she misses Paris very much. Israel is not an easy place to live in.
No, and she has her family there. And
right.
The movie makes Paris look positively edible. You just want to eat it with a spoon. It's so beautiful.
So they move there with their young son, and this actually happens on the backdrop of something that Europe has experienced more and more of, which is terrorist attacks.
Yes.
Which rock not just their lives, but everybody's lives. Different way of feeling about, your safety in the world, and relationships between different types of people and different types of ethnic groups. And, but I can't even really tell you what the show is about because it's about so many things.
Yes,
and
it is about so many things, but at the core is their relationship.
At the core is their relationship, but it's also about being displaced and having to start over.
And it's also about being willing to tell the truth. I mean, this girl, as her boss tells her many times, is not really a diplomat.
Yes, they always kind of feel that they hold back, and then they blurt it out.
Yeah. She speaks her mind.
It's about also about the balance of power and dynamics in the relationship between the man and the woman. It's about families in general. It's about Judaism and the past and the future. It's so original.
It's a wonderful series.
It's so sensitive.
I just loved it.
I really missed it after we were done with it.
It's beautiful to look at, and
it's funny too.
Had a lot of humor in it. The acting was wonderful, and there were surprises. There were things that were very. Their relationship is very interesting, and
I never knew where they were going to go with anything. It was very unpredictable and very original.
And Annabelle, I adored. I just adored the main female character, the Attache herself. She was, I thought, a wonderful character. I loved her.
And it's only half-hour episodes, so it makes it very easy to binge on, which we did.
When you say, I only have a half hour in me, instead of watching a property or a
Except,
you
know what, though? It never ended with one episode for us. I think we always watched them.
We have very little self-control when it comes to shows that you actually can binge. Yeah, one is never enough.
We really, really enjoyed it. To me, I always feel I enjoy most the shows that I like hanging out with the people in them, and I really enjoyed hanging out with these people.
Yes, and her parents are very interesting.
Yeah.
They're French,
and his father, and it was really, really, really very different from everything else we usually watch.
Yes,
and thoroughly enjoyable.
Yes, very original.
So it's called The Attache, and it's on Acorn TV.
Acorn TV, one of the best streamers. So much bang for your buck. And speaking of Acorn TV, and we still have how many?
We watched 2. We have 2 more to go.
And I want to watch immediately.
We will.
A new 4-part series called Bloodlands. Written and created by Chris Brandon, and it has a very good cast, but it's led by James Nesbitt, who you will know from many things.
I forgot to say, from Israel, we're going to Ireland.
Right. We're going to Northern Ireland. We're going to Belfast. And it's the current time, but it delves into the time of the Troubles. And you see that there's still a lot of clashes, a lot of and people have never really a lot of people have never gotten over it. And Tom Brannick is a detective, a well-known detective, and he lost his wife
some years ago.
Yes, and it's a cold case, and another a serial killer, I think, isn't it?
Well, let's just say something happens, and there's definitely the connection between the old case and the new case.
Right. This case that took place 20 years ago. And he's really not supposed to be exploring the old case, but he can't help but do it because he wants to find out
what
has
happened
to his wife. His wife was actually like a member of the CIA, but from Irish, and she disappeared.
Right.
So,
but it's very twisty.
It's very, very twisty, turny. A lot of things happen that you don't expect.
It's very gritty.
It's very. Thank you. I feel like an echo here. It's very gritty. It's well acted. It's well written. It's. Everything about it, I think, is really top notch.
Right, and actually, where we stopped, because we started the third episode, but I was half asleep, so we stopped. But where we stopped on the end of the second episode, something happened that was very unpredictable, and that changes the entire picture. Yes. And now I'm curious to see where it was going to go.
Let's watch.
I know, but we're busy watching Shtisel, which we'll talk about in a second.
All right, and then we have to finish Bloodlands. I really recommend it, especially if you like dramas about this subject. If you like detective dramas.
And British detective dramas.
Irish in this case.
Yes.
It really is worth your time. It's more than worth your time.
One of those moody
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite kinds of things. And you may think at first that it's a little procedurally light, but it's really got a lot under the surface.
Yeah. So this is Bloodlands. It's a 4-part drama, and it's available on Acorn TV. Speaking of Stössel, just very, very quickly, we just want to mention that we've started, the 3rd season is on Netflix right now. If you haven't watched the first 2 seasons, you must. It's just something so special. We'll talk next week more once we finish the 3rd season. We'll tell you more about it. But just encouraging you to. This should be what you do this weekend.
Yes, it takes place in
an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood in Jerusalem, in Israel. Now, before we want to talk to you about something very important, which is the world to come, because
we've gotten a lot of pushback on our review.
Well, I just want to say before we go there, I just want you to stick around so you can listen to our to our response to your comments on our Lesbian Movie Club. But before that, I want to say 2 things. One is I just had to say something about it because I'm so tired of seeing this that I just had to say this. Network TV and abortions. How many times do you see a woman decide to have an abortion only in the last minute she changes her mind? I've never seen a woman...
Or has a miscarriage.
Well, of course, that's the easiest thing. I've never seen a woman, I don't think, on network TV actually carries through an abortion just because she decided she won't have a baby right now.
Erica Kane.
Well, but then they took it back.
Then they took it back and
they made it even worse.
Abortion.
They made it even worse. I'm just so tired of it. Sometimes if there's a medical reason, they'll let her have it. But I just want them to not be such fucking chicken shits.
Yes.
And let a woman have an abortion because it's not
legal.
the right time. Exactly. It's not the right time in her life. It's not, whatever reason. That's just because she decided she needs an abortion. I'm just so... Be brave enough to have a few people turn you off, because the people that keep watching will be more loyal. Exactly. I'll appreciate it more. I do also want to point out the new season of New Amsterdam, which just started a few weeks ago. And first of all, I think it's their best season yet.
Yes, I don't know if they have a new... not that I haven't loved the show from the beginning, but they must have a new showrunner or some new writers.
It's much better.
It is. It's much deeper. It's much more interesting. It's much more au courant.
Well, and I think that they're doing... because a lot of shows have found different ways of dealing with the COVID,
issue.
Yes, exactly. And what I love about what New Amsterdam is doing is that even though they took it a little bit into the future, so things are better. Most of the people have been vaccinated. They don't have to be as worried. But now they're dealing with the emotional and mental ramifications of what it means.
What it was like at the height.
But not only... See, other shows have done, the trauma for the doctors from having experienced all that. But not only that, but the things about how do you get used to not being afraid of touching people,
right.
Or all those things that, or one of the doctors there misses the adrenaline rush, the feeling that she was needed. I think what they're doing psychologically with these people is absolutely remarkable, and I respect them a lot for that.
Yes, so do I. And of course, Iggy, the
psychiatrist,
is my favorite, practically my favorite character. So it's nice to see his involvement become more intrinsic to the show. Okay,
so it's time to talk about the world to come, and I think so. We hated it, and a lot of people on our Lesbian Movie Club on our YouTube page commented that they absolutely loved it, and they don't understand how we could feel so differently about it. So, first of all, I want to say that I think one of the reasons that we couldn't tell you exactly how we felt was because we really, really tried not to reveal the ending, so we couldn't talk openly about some of the things that we hated about
that made us really hate it.
Yes, because. Throughout the movie, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I was very underwhelmed.
But I adore Vanessa Kirby, and so just watching her was, took me through it.
Yeah. I didn't hate it. I just didn't feel that it was that stunning.
I even liked Catherine Waterston.
But the ending really, really made us hate it. And there were 2 things about it. And I think you want to talk about one of them.
You mean the fact that we didn't see any of their love scenes. We didn't see any real relationship with them until Catherine what was it? Abigail?
Yes.
Abigail lay down next to Tally's cold body, dead body. And then in a tiny, brief segment of memory, we saw that they actually did have a great deal of joy. They had physical contact. They had a real, loving, physical relationship. So not only are you devastated at her death, were you sort of bored throughout it or waiting for something to happen more fulfilling between them? You find out at the end that there was more, that we didn't get to see it, and it made her death to me all the more tragic.
I felt like it was a slap in the face. Here, lesbians, have some...
Here, we'll throw you these crumbs.
We'll throw you these crumbs as we lie next to the corpse of the woman she loves. That was one thing. The second thing that I found was the second slap was when Abigail writes in the end, writes in her diary, and she decides that now that Tally has died, she's going to recommit herself to being a good wife to her husband.
What the
I
fuck?
was going to throw up.
Really. Except that...
I was so angry.
It was enraging, but the thing that may have made her do that was she realized that she had a very good, kind husband.
Yes, but guess what?
Tally was murdered by her husband.
Yes, but guess what? Not only did they kill the lesbian,
but then they made the lesbian be not a lesbian.
No, but now from that experience, the lesbian has learned that the best thing she could do was to be a good wife to her husband.
Because she was lucky to have a man like him instead of a man like Tally's husband.
This is, to me, the old-fashioned, the lesbian has to die in order for society's order to be restored. And I found it to be so enraging. I wanted to throw a shoe at the TV, honestly. So, if the movie had been this slow burn throughout, and then in the end, I understand it's the period. First of all, you know what? Carol was a period when a woman wasn't supposed to give up her child in order to be with her lover either. But they did that. Yes. It is possible to do that. I assure you that even in the 1800s, there were lesbian couples who managed to not die, okay? Secondly...
if they didn't die because it was so hard living there, and that they got some sort of a terrible disease or died of hunger,
or by their husband. But even if you wanted to go with a sad ending, because unfortunately many filmmakers feel that a sad ending makes the movie much more, edgy, whatever. Even if you decide to go there are many ways to make a movie. You know what? Even if you had gone with, take Disobedience, for example, where the ending was vague. I don't agree that Carol's ending was vague.
No, Carol has a happy ending.
I don't agree that Ammonite's ending was vague. No. I think that both of those endings ended in a way that allowed you to imagine how they would continue, but they ended on a good note. Disobedience ended with a more vague note because of the nature of things, and if you want to compare 1800s lesbians to ultra-Orthodox...
Yes, it's not a far stretch.
Right, so I understand that the ending can be vague. Why not leave us with some hope? Or why not leave us with at least a sense that Abigail has been completely changed by this experience and she will never go back to being what she used to be. She's going to live now being fully committed not to her husband, but to her fucking self.
And the other thing is, if we had seen throughout the film those crumbs, they threw at us at the end, it would have made the whole film better. And I think it would have even made the ending more tragic. And I can accept the ending as long as we had the joy of their life together before.
You mean plucking chickens together didn't seem romantic?
No, that wasn't. And just like Otalia actually folding laundry was
Except
not enough,
folding laundry at least didn't offend me. They were plucking fucking chickens.
Yes, and nobody killed them. It was... I think that we would have been able to enjoy the film more. We would have accepted it more. The end would have been more tragic. And I think that Abigail... I still think Abigail could have learned that she was actually lucky to have the man she had, but that she was not going to sacrifice her life for for the will of.
Forgive me. If this is a movie about lesbians, I don't think that the ending should be about, oh, how amazing my man is.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. That can be a part of it, though. I'm sorry.
He can be a part of it, but it should not be the end-all conclusion.
That was the end. That was the end of the movie.
That was the conclusion.
Going to support I'm going to be a better... I'm dedicating myself to be a better wife to my husband.
I'm so angry.
At least he's probably not
At least he didn't kill me.
Yeah. So that, it's not that the film wasn't pretty to look at and that the two actresses weren't very good. They were wonderful.
And they even had chemistry.
Yes, they had. Yes, I'm not a big fan of Catherine Waterston, but I thought she was excellent in this. And the vitality that Vanessa Kirby brings to everything seemed to be catching, and they had very good chemistry. If we had seen that this was really love, and that they had some joy from each other that we would have received as we watched, we wouldn't have hated it as much as we hated it.
Yeah, no, I didn't hate it as much until the ending, and in the ending I just felt, that's it, goodbye. So we really just had to share with you exactly how we felt. You might still very much disagree with us. That's perfectly fine. It must just be one of those movies where you either saw it how and we actually do know of a few people who share how we feel.
Yes, so as many people felt the same as we did, felt
as
differently. But it's sort of like The English Patient. I think
not.
Well, it's not because The English Patient is one of the great films.
No, not because of that, but because The English Patient, I don't think made anybody hate it.
Many people hated the English.
What's the hate about The English Patient?
They just hated it. Okay.
Well, anyway, that's a different story. Anyway, so this is how we feel about The World to Come. If you still want to tell us how you feel about it, we would love to. But we had to kind of add this to explain. And with that, we're way over time, so we're just going to say thank you for joining us again.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Get vaccinated.
And we will talk to you again very soon.
Bye.
Bye.